In the vast expanse of human history, few civilizations have carved their presence as deeply as the Roman Empire, a force that rose from humble beginnings to dominate the ancient world and shape the contours of law, politics, warfare, engineering, and culture for millennia to come. The story of Rome does not begin with emperors or vast armies. It begins with myth, with a pair of abandoned twins, Romulus and Remus, left by the waters of the Tiber River, a legend that symbolizes both the fragility and resilience that would define Rome's destiny. Whether myth or memory, the tale captures the spirit of a society that believed fate chose them for greatness. Rome, according to tradition, was founded in 753 BCE on the Seven Hills, a cluster of settlements that would eventually merge into the nucleus of a rising power. Life in early Rome revolved around shepherding, farming, and survival. But beneath this simplicity lay ambitions that would soon transcend geography. Governed initially by kings, some benevolent, others tyrannical, Rome grew steadily until the Romans overthrew their monarchy in 509 BCE and declared themselves a republic, a bold political experiment that would influence government structures long after the empire had fallen. The Roman Republic created a system that balanced power between elected officials, the Senate, and the citizens. It was imperfect and often turbulent, but it forged a society disciplined by laws rather than ruled purely by the whims of a monarch. Yet this political evolution came with constant challenges. Within its borders, Rome dealt with class struggles between the patricians, the wealthy aristocrats, and the plebeians, the common citizens who demanded political representation. Outside its borders, Rome faced enemies who tested its resolve. Among these conflicts, none shaped Roman identity more profoundly than the wars with Carthage. The Punic Wars. Carthage, a wealthy maritime power in North Africa, contested Rome's influence over the Mediterranean. These wars, fought between 264 and 146 BCE, were terrifying, brutal, and transformative. Hannibal's daring crossing of the Alps with elephants remains one of history's greatest military feats, striking fear deep into the Roman heartland. But Rome persisted, driven by a sense of destiny that refused defeat. After decades of bloodshed, Rome emerged victorious, reducing Carthage to ruins. With the fall of Carthage, Rome became the master of the Western Mediterranean, setting the stage for its expansion into Greece, Egypt, Asia Minor, and beyond. As Rome's territories grew, so too did the pressures on its political system. Wealth flowed into Rome: gold, slaves, land, influence, and with it came corruption, inequality, and social tension. The Republic began to crack under the weight of its success. Powerful generals, entrusted with armies loyal not to the state but to individuals, began to challenge the authority of the Senate. Among them, one name rises above the rest: Gaius Julius Caesar. Brilliant, ambitious, and charismatic, Caesar expanded Roman territories in Gaul, earning immense popularity among the people and deep suspicion among the Senate. When ordered to disband his army, he crossed the Rubicon River, a point of no return, igniting a civil war that would end centuries of Republican rule. His victory placed him at the center of Roman power, but his assassination on the Ides of March in 44 BCE plunged the state back into chaos. Yet from this turmoil emerged a new leader, Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, later known as Augustus. Through political skill, strategic alliances, and brutal decisiveness, Augustus consolidated power and in 27 BCE became Rome's first emperor, ushering in the imperial era. The rise of Augustus marked a turning point in world history. Under his guidance, Rome entered a period known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace lasting roughly 200 years. It was a time of prosperity, stability, and monumental achievement. Roads stretched across continents, aqueducts carried clean water to cities, trade flourished from Britannia to Egypt, and Roman law brought order to a diverse empire. The legions enforced security at the borders, while architects, engineers, and artists shaped the physical and cultural landscape. The Colosseum, Roman baths, grand forums and temples. These became symbols of Rome's ingenuity and ambition. Yet even in peace, Rome was never free from danger. Emperors varied dramatically in character and competence. Some, like Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius, expanded and defended the empire with wisdom. Others, like Nero and Caligula, ruled with cruelty and madness, demonstrating how absolute power could both elevate and corrupt. Rome's borders continued to stretch under the might of its legions, reaching their maximum extent under Emperor Trajan in 117 CE. From the deserts of Arabia to the hills of Scotland, from the forests of Germania to the coasts of North Africa. But beneath this impressive expanse lay growing fractures. The empire faced pressures from all directions: economic strain, political instability, invasions by Germanic tribes, and the difficulty of governing territories so vast that communication itself became a challenge. The spread of Christianity added another layer of complexity, evolving from a persecuted minority to the faith embraced by Emperor Constantine in the early 4th century. With the conversion of Constantine and the establishment of Constantinople as a new imperial capital, the center of Roman power began shifting eastward. By the late 4th and early 5th centuries, the Western Roman Empire was struggling against relentless invasions, internal rivalry, and crippling economic decline. The Visigoths, Vandals, Huns, and other migrating groups struck at a weakened empire that could no longer rely on the strength of its legions. In 410 CE, the unthinkable happened. The Visigoths sacked Rome, shocking the ancient world and symbolizing the empire's vulnerability. Though Rome would recover briefly, its days were numbered. Finally, in 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire fell, marking the end of one of humanity's greatest political, military, and cultural achievements. But its legacy was far from over. The Eastern Roman Empire, known to history as the Byzantine Empire, continued for almost another 1,000 years, preserving Roman law, culture, and tradition even as the Western world descended into the Middle Ages. The story of the Roman Empire is not simply a narrative of rise and fall. It is a testament to human ambition, resilience, and creativity. It is the story of how a small settlement on the banks of the Tiber grew into a superpower, how it shaped the architecture of modern government, law, language, and society, and how echoes of Rome still resonate across the world today, from the design of modern capitals to legal systems. From literature to engineering, from warfare to ideas of citizenship, Rome did not disappear. It transformed, fragmented, and reassembled into the societies that followed. And so the complete history of the Roman Empire is not just ancient history, it is the foundation upon which much of the modern world still stands. As Rome moved deeper into the imperial era, the transformation of power, identity, and society became increasingly visible. The emperors who followed Augustus inherited not only his authority, but the immense weight of maintaining an empire built on both discipline and ambition. Tiberius, his successor, ruled with caution and suspicion, preferring stability over expansion, but his aloofness from public life and the growing influence of the Praetorian Guard revealed how fragile the balance of power could be. Caligula's brief and chaotic reign exposed the dangers of absolute authority unchecked by republican institutions, turning the palace into a stage of eccentricity and cruelty. Claudius, despite being underestimated due to his perceived physical weaknesses and stammer, proved to be an efficient administrator, expanding Roman territory into Britannia and reforming key governmental institutions. Nero, the last of the Julio-Claudian line, symbolized both the artistic aspiration and the destructive excesses of imperial power, with his reign ending in revolt and fire, both literal and symbolic, leading to his suicide and the eruption of civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors. In this turbulent year, four powerful generals, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and ultimately Vespasian, vied for control of the empire. Vespasian emerged victorious and founded the Flavian dynasty. Under his rule, Rome regained stability and undertook grand construction projects, the most iconic of which was the Colosseum. originally known as the Flavian Amphitheater. This monumental structure, capable of seating tens of thousands, became a symbol of Roman entertainment, engineering, and power, hosting gladiatorial games, mock naval battles, and dramatic spectacles designed to display the might and generosity of the emperor. The Flavian dynasty continued under Titus and Domitian, both of whom dealt with crises ranging from volcanic eruptions to conspiracies and economic challenges. Following Domitian's assassination, the Senate ushered in the era known as the Five Good Emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. This period, often considered the height of Roman civilization, combined wise governance with military prowess and cultural flourishing. Trajan expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent, conquering Dacia and bringing immense wealth into Rome through war spoils and new provinces rich in minerals. His construction projects, including Trajan's Forum and Trajan's Column, celebrated Rome's triumphs while showcasing the architectural mastery of the age. Hadrian shifted focus from expansion to consolidation, fortifying borders with structures such as Hadrian's Wall in Britannia, which marked the northern boundary of Roman control and served as both a defensive barrier and a symbol of Roman presence in the distant British landscape. Antoninus Pius presided over an era of peace and prosperity rarely seen again in Roman history, allowing culture, law, and philosophy to thrive. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, ruled during times of increasing pressure, facing Germanic invasions, plagues, and economic strain. His personal reflections, preserved in the Meditations, remain one of the most profound works of Stoic philosophy, offering insight into the mindset of a ruler burdened with the immense responsibility of defending an empire under threat. His son Commodus, however, marked the beginning of renewed instability. His erratic behavior, obsession with gladiatorial combat, and disregard for governance eroded public trust and weakened Rome from within. His assassination in 190 CE plunged the empire once again into chaos, leading to the Year of the Five Emperors and ultimately the rise of Septimius Severus. The Severan dynasty revived some measure of order, but also introduced new dynamics that destabilized traditional Roman power structures. The increasing reliance on the military for political legitimacy shifted the balance of authority, empowering generals and soldiers who learned that emperors could be made and unmade by the legions. After the Severans, Rome entered a long and difficult period known as the crisis of the 3rd century, a time when the empire nearly collapsed under pressures both internal and external. Between 235 and 284 CE, dozens of emperors rose and fell, many ruling only months before being assassinated or overthrown. Civil wars tore the empire apart, while barbarian invasions, economic collapse, plague, and regional secessions pushed Rome to the brink of disintegration. At its lowest point, the empire fractured into 3 separate states: the Gallic Empire in the west, the Pomeranian Empire in the east, and the Central Roman state struggling to survive. Rome's salvation came from a series of capable military rulers who restructured and stabilized the empire. Among these, Aurelian stands out as the emperor who reconquered lost territories and earned the title Restorer of the World. His reforms revived confidence in Rome's institutions, but the most profound transformation came under Diocletian. Recognizing that the empire had grown too vast and complex to be governed by a single ruler, Diocletian introduced the Tetrarchia system, dividing power among 2 senior emperors, known as Augusti, and 2 junior emperors, called Caesars. This system aimed to ensure smoother succession and more effective regional control, and while it brought temporary stability, it also laid the foundation for future power struggles. Diocletian also reformed the army, taxation, and administration, implementing changes that fundamentally altered the structure of Roman governance. He persecuted Christians in an attempt to enforce religious unity, but his policies ultimately failed to suppress the growing faith. After Diocletian's abdication, the Tetrarchy began to unravel as rival claimants fought for supreme authority. Out of this turmoil emerged a singular figure, Constantine the Great. Constantine defeated his rivals, reunited the empire under his rule, and embraced Christianity. After his victory at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, a moment that transformed the religious landscape of the entire ancient world, his Edict of Milan granted religious tolerance to Christians, ending centuries of persecution. His establishment of Constantinople as the new capital shifted the center of power eastward, where the empire would continue to thrive long after the fall of the West. The centuries that followed saw an increasing divergence between the eastern and western halves of the empire. The East, wealthier, more urbanized and better fortified, grew stronger, while the West faced mounting challenges. Waves of Germanic tribes pressed against Rome's borders, some fleeing the ferocity of the Huns and others driven by hunger, population growth, or the desire for new lands. Rome attempted to integrate some of these groups as federate allies, granting them land in exchange for military service. However, tensions, mismanagement, and cultural differences often sparked conflict. The sack of Rome by the Visigoths in 410 CE was a psychological blow more than a military one, a symbol that the Eternal City was not immune to the forces that threatened the empire's existence.